All right, guys. Welcome to Aussiz's Australian Migration and Education Conclave 2022. A very warm welcome to all the guests who are joining. My name is Deepa. I'm the Director of Education at Aussizz Group. Today's session is going to be about student visa and student dependent visas. Joining me is also Ashish from NIB Health Funds. Hi, Ashish. Welcome to the session.
Thanks, Deepa. Thanks for inviting us to this conclave.
Thank you. So, guys, this session is going to be extensive. So, I'm going to brush through a few things and talk in detail about a few things because student visa is an extensive topic. Um, before we start the session, I would like to announce our giveaways. Just a minute, I'll just share my screen. Okay. So this is our final session of this 5-day conclave. We've had received great responses. We would like to return the favor as well. We have some great giveaway offers for our viewers. If you are also as excited as us and you're finding these sessions engaging and useful, give us a shout out on social media. My admin team will be dropping a link in the chat box just down below. So share your feedback, share your excitement, share your review of our conclave sessions, and the best comments will be filtered, and you will be awarded a range of goodies and prizes that would include a free 2-month PT coaching, free online CCL coaching, free 485 visa consultation, free PR consultation. And if you plan to apply for any university or a provider through us, you are eligible for up to 50% scholarship, provided you meet the eligibility for the courses as well, right? So jump in, guys, and give us a shout out so that you can win these exciting prizes. Um, I'm going to start my session on student visa and student dependent visa, and then Mr. Ashish will be talking about NIB health funds because this will be relating to a particular student visa condition, which is 8501 condition, which is maintaining a health cover. So I am going to give a brief of a lot of criterias, but talk in detail about GTE and finance criterias because that's where students struggle a lot. That's where they need more help. That's where some case studies and real-time experience can help. So I'm going to brush through a few of the criterias and I'm going to talk in detail about GTE and finance criterias for both student visa as well as the student dependent visas, right? So let's start from the basics. What is a student visa? Basically, it's a visa that lets you study as a full-time student, as a full-time international student in Australia. Everyone knows the subclass that it is denoted by the Department of Home Affairs. It's called subclass 500. It allows you to be a full-time student at a recognized Australian education institution. They're called CRICOS providers. CRICOS providers are the ones that are approved to engage and deliver programs for international students, right? Now, I'll just give you some general info. Obviously, there is an age limit attached to student visa as well. You can apply for your own student visa as a primary applicant as young as 6 years of age. And there is no top limit to the age that you can be a student in Australia, although it is a GT concern when you're too old and you're starting a career, starting on a student visa as an international student. But the minimum limit you can be at least you must be at least 6 years of age to qualify for a grant as a primary applicant. And you must be studying in a provider that is approved to educate international students. That would be a CRICOS registered education provider. Now, your course must be at least 3 months minimum duration, and it can be upward duration of 2 years or 3 years depending upon the course, but it should be at least a minimum of 3 months of duration, because anything less than 3 months you can study on your current visa like a tourist visa or even a 485 visa. You could study any course that is less than 3 months on those visas as well, but if it's anything more than 3 months, then you'll have to get a student visa to study those courses. It costs from $650. That is a single primary applicant applying. It costs $650. There are additional charges as there are dependents added to the application. There are additional extension charges depending upon how many times you are applying student visa onshore as well. It can be granted up to 5 years, which means if you get a diploma, advanced diploma, bachelor's together, it would come up to 5 years. Maximum duration that they can grant a student visa is 5 years. Anything more than that is questioned because of GTE. Right now, let's try to understand how department assesses the student visa applications. Um, Now, department is guided by a framework based on which they categorize application and they put certain risk level depending upon the country and depending upon the education provider that you're studying. This framework is called Simplified Student Visa Framework or SSVF. Basically, the mechanics behind this is that every education provider has a rating, a level 1, level 2, level 3, level 1 being low risk, at level 2 being medium risk, and level 3 being high risk. Similarly, every country also has an immigration rating, a risk rating depending upon the migration patterns that are coming from each country, right? So there's a level 1 country, level 2 country, level 3 country, depending upon how they are low risk, medium risk, and high risk. A permutation and combination of your education provider rating and your country's rating decides how your application is going to be assessed by the department. So I'll just show you a simple flow chart here. So a table here. So you have your education provider ratings as 1, 2, 3. You have your country ratings as 1, 2, 3, right? So you can see categories there. If your education provider is level 1 and your country is level 1, then your application will be assessed in a streamlined category, which means you do not have to submit financials or English to the department, a financial document or the English language requirement. You're exempted of submitting that to the department unless they ask for it, which they don't ask in 99.9% of the cases, because the case officers are directed to not ask for extra evidences unless they are suspicious of something. So when your application is categorized as a streamlined category, then you do not have to generally submit any of these documents, right? GTE is still a factor, but when it comes to English and finance, you don't have to submit those. Similarly, if your education provider is rated 2, but your country is rated 3, you will fall under regular criteria, which means that for your application to be processed, you must submit financial documents as well as you must meet the English language requirements as prescribed by the department, right? So these are the two main differences one has to understand. These ratings change every 6 months. So every 6 months, a country's rating in terms of level 1, level 2, level 3 is changed every in March and in September. Similarly, of an education provider as well. So you have to keep monitoring this, and you will have to understand whether do I have to submit a financial document to the department or do I have to submit English or not, right? So how do you find that out? That is through this document checklist tool, right? I've provided the link here, but if you just Google student visa document checklist tool, this shows up as a top hit. You can technically, if you put your country of passport and your education provider and hit search, what happens is that it will tell you what sort of documents that you'll have to submit. And if you don't have English or finances coming up as a requirement, then your application is considered to be streamlined. Whereas if you have English and financial requirements as part of the combination between the country and the education provider, then you will have to that then it is assessed as regular. Then you will have to submit the finances in English, right? Simple enough. Now, uh, as I said, the immigration risk ratings that are updated every 6 months, it is not made public. Nobody, you can say that, okay, this country is this level, it is checked using the document checklist tool. And GTE, as I said, is still a criteria. Just because you're falling under streamline doesn't mean the department is not going to explore why you are applying for student visa. Are you a genuine student? What is your immigration history? What is the relevance between the career and the courses that you've done previously and what you're going to do now? All of these questions related to the integrity of the application still exist. It's just that you don't have to submit the finances or English, right? So a minor thing that I would like to talk about. So students can apply for student visa from world over. You can be in Australia or you can be outside of Australia when you're applying for student visa, right? Now, but when you are applying from onshore, you must have a certain pre-qualifying visa to apply for a student visa. A pre-qualifying visa is basically a substantiative visa that you must have held, currently held, or you must have held in the last 28 days, right? So what are those substantiative visas? If I am already holding a student visa, then I can apply for another student visa. That's simply called student visa extension. If I'm holding a 485 visa, I can apply for another student visa. If I'm holding a 408 visa, I can apply for uh, I can apply for a student visa onshore, right? But there are some visas, if you hold, you cannot apply for a student visa onshore, right? And those are non-qualifying visas. There's a whole list of non-qualifying visas, but I would like to draw your attention towards the last one listed there. It's called visitor visa subclass 500, subclass 600 in the sponsored family stream or in the approved destination stream. Now, these two streams, like if you are coming on a tourist visa, you can apply for a student visa, but your visitor visa or your tourist visa must not be granted under these two streams. If it's granted under these two streams, then you will have a no further stay condition, which would prevent you from applying for a further student visa onshore, right? So, any other than these non-qualifying visas listed here, all of the other visas or pre-qualifying visas, you can transition from a 482, which is an employer sponsored visa, to student visa. You can transition from a 485 to student visa, a student dependent visa to student visa, a visitor visa tourist stream to student visa, a 408 to student visa. Those things are very much possible, right? Now that's about who what sort of visa that you can hold onshore so that you can qualify to apply. The next about who can join you on your student visa. There is a lot of myth that, oh, even my parents can join. Sometimes there are these preconceived notions that any family member can join. No, if a family member is someone, is either a spouse or a de facto partner and children, um, who are part of that relationship, are considered the family members who can join you on a student visa. That exclude your brothers or sisters, your siblings, your mother, father, all of those things. So who are considered members of your family unit? Spouse or de facto partner, but they must be at least 18 years of age. They must not be a minor, or any dependent children who are under 18 years of age and are unmarried. Only these people can be included as members of the family unit, who can be included as dependents on your visa, right? Uh, Now, many times what happens is that many students do not fail to declare many times that they are married, and it prevents later for the family members of the family unit to join them on student dependent visas. It is a foremost thing that student must avoid, must disclose all sorts of relationships to the Department of Immigration on your primary, on your first application that you're making, right? So let's say if a family member is not declared on a student visa initially, and then you try to add them later, right? Then they may not be eligible to be granted a dependent visa later, right? So we always tell students that because it is going to be very evident from a marriage certificate, that or a de facto relationship document that is going to give out the fact that, okay, this person was not declared as a dependent earlier when the first time the student visa was applied, right? So that calls into question. So it is very important to declare all family members, who could be spouse, de facto partners, children, brother, father, mother, brother, siblings, all in your visa application. Now let's talk about student visa criteria. So as I said, I'm going to talk in detail about GT and finances, but we will skim through the other criterias as well. So main assessment criteria, you must have an evidence of enrollment, that's called a COE, the GT criteria, the English language requirement, finance, OSHC, and health requirements, right? I'm just showcasing a COE here. You can see a screenshot of that on the right. So this is a official document that is issued by the Department of Education in conjunction with the Department of Home Affairs through a system called PRISM, right? And see, based on your COE, only your visas are granted. Your COE also determines the length up to which your student visa has to be granted, right? So now, if you do not have a COE, you cannot apply for a student visa. COE is confirmation of enrollment, right? It is different from an offer letter. Offer letter means you are offered a place to study, whereas COE means it's a confirmed place where you are admitted into a course, right? Now, students from offshore must have a COE to apply for a student visa, but students who are onshore can apply with an offer letter for a student visa extension as well, and then later submit their COE, right? Um, your courses can be packaged as well. You could package a Cert 3, a Cert 4, a diploma. Those are called a packaged arrangement. When you are packaging, then there is let's say there is a Cert 4 COE from one provider, then there's a diploma COE from another provider. Then you are left wondering, okay, then which COE determines my assessment level, right? Basically, it is the principal course, which is the course with the highest AQF level, which means the final course. Let's say if I package the Cert 3, Cert 4 diploma, then the assessment level of the diploma provider determines the evidentiary requirements for visa. And if they are a level 1 provider, then it's quite possible that I will get categorized under streamlined visa category, right? So COEs can be packaged as well. Uh, and this is one thing that I want to draw attention towards. Many students don't look into this. When is the right time to lodge a student visa? It is not, it is advised you don't lodge it too early, let's say 6 months prior to your course start date. We recommend early applications invite a certain amount of scrutiny in terms of are you looking to gain access into the country sooner. So, and also applications that are lodged 120 days before the commencement are normally also put on low priority. So lodge it anywhere between 90 days prior to the course start date so that your applications are processed on priority, right? The other this criteria I'm going to discuss in detail, which is DTE, because many students lose out because they're not able to demonstrate to the department that they are a genuine temporary entrant who've entered Australia for the purpose of study on a temporary basis and they have enough intentions to go back home, right? It is a subjective measure, it is an integrity measure, it is a reliability measure. It is not a formulaic criteria. It looks into a lot of range of factors, right? And it particularly looks into the statement of purpose that the student is going to submit. So we are going to look at that in detail. So when it comes to GTE, there are these 5 factors that are looked at, and there are certain red flags that are looked at keenly when it comes to each of these categories, right? So factor one, applicant circumstances in home country. Factor two, applicant's potential circumstances in Australia. Factor three, value of the course to the applicant's future. Factor four, immigration history, and factor five, other relevant matters of interest. So we're going to deep dive into each and every criteria in detail, right? So first one, circumstances in home country, right? So this here you they are going to look at why you have not pursued this course in your home country, and why are you choosing Australia to pursue this course, and what about your personal background, what about your social ties, what about your family ties, what about your economic situation back in your home country, what about your country's economic situation, right? So it is a holistic measure of all of these things. So what are some of the red flags that where they increase that increases the scrutiny of your application, right? Is when you have similar courses already available in your home country. For example, in a Bachelor of Commerce or a Bachelor of Accounts course is very much available in many parts of the world, especially let's say considering the subcontinent, it's a very common qualification, right? So if you're going to study a Master of Commerce or Bachelor of Commerce in Australia, while there are innumerable options available in your home country, then you must explain why in detail. Compare and contrast in terms of what you're getting in Australia that you're not getting in your home country, right? This an example of that. You say that okay, the courses in my country are not CPA accredited, or a CA accredited one. Whereas if I do in Australia, then I can get a professional membership with CPA or CA because all courses are accredited in Australia. Internship as part of the course, capstone units as part of the course that may not be available in your home country, right? So you will have to differentiate, bring out these points, so that if you're going for a more common course, then your application is not rejected just on the basis of the fact that these courses are available in your home country. For example, a course like let's say a master's in public health or a social work course may not be predominantly available in your home country, but still you'll have to explain why you've chosen Australia and not your home country to study these courses, right? High unemployment in home country, yes, this is also one thing. If your country is going through an economic downturn, for example, like Venezuela, or if it's like a war situation like Ukraine, then your application is going to be scrutinized. Because it looks like, okay, are you trying to flee those circumstances, and are you using student visa as a vehicle to do so, right? So this is again a red flag. Income is much lower than the cost of living in Australia. This is also very important. When you are showing funds um, to support that you have enough financials to maintain your stay and study in Australia, you must also show evidence of ongoing income, right? And if yourself as well as your family members don't have enough evidence of ongoing income in your family, then where that income is also much lesser than how much is the cost of living in Australia, then your application is going to be scrutinized, right? So not only the funds, you must also show evidence of ongoing income tax returns of your parents, your siblings, your first party relatives. The accompanying application shows that, okay, you are from a well to do background where they can allot they can earmark this particular funds for you to study, whereas they have the money coming into the family for their own upkeep, and they can very much help you in managing the cost of living in Australia as well, right? Military service commitments, there are countries that have mandatory military services, and you have students who would there are reasons that are looked at. Are they using student visa to avoid such things? Political and geographical climates, I already shed some light on that. Minimal family ties back home. If there is a situation where the students near and close family, they all have migration patterns. A sibling is already settled in Canada, another sibling is already settled in UK, and here's the final student who's now trying to come abroad, and they do not have enough family back home. Then these are considered as red flags because the student does not have enough family ties in the home country, right? Uh, so when you have a red flag, doesn't mean your application is rejected. It is also about how you explain in your statement of purpose, as well as a holistic measure of how many red flags against how many positive measures, right? As I said, it is an integrity criteria. Um, Now, the second one, applicants' potential circumstances in Australia. So, this particularly examines this is particularly relevant for students who are onshore as well as students who are offshore as well, but mainly it is more important for students who are studying onshore, right? So, what is the incentive for them to continue to remain in Australia? Whether do they have already family members who have unfavorable immigration histories? Do they have a particular family member who has probably is already on has had a visa rejection because they have breached a visa condition, right? These are looked at as a red flag. If a student who's particularly studying onshore has and that student has taken a range of courses that are not related to each other, shows adverse course patterns, incomplete courses, long gaps, doing a lot of cheap inexpensive courses concurrently one after the other, that are unrelated to each other, these are red flags as well. Staying inside Australia for long periods, this is very important. Students do not visit their home country enough. When they come here, let's say they've stayed here for a total of 3,000 days, for example, or 1,000 days, which could be 3 years, for example, but they have not even spent out of that 100 days back home, right? It is considered where if you have not gone back to your home country to visit, that is also considered as a red flag. It can be assessed leniently considering COVID. Students didn't have the opportunity to go back, but it is looked at if you've lived 10 years in Australia and you've only visited once your home country, that automatically gives off that you don't have enough family ties, right? Insufficient knowledge about Australia and the course. This is also something where um, when students are writing generic stuff in their statement of purpose that is not personalized, where they're not comparing and contrasting between Australia and other countries, or Australia and their home country, the course that they're doing compared to what is available in other countries as well as in the home country, and not showing enough knowledge about where they're going to study, what sort of institution it is, what sort of course components are there, affects, that's a red flag. And sometimes statements can be good, but if it turns out to be very generic and taken from the internet also, that can affect the way your application is processed. Value of the course to the applicant's future. So this factor examines whether the current course that the student is opting for is relevant to the student's employment background, as well as the previous educational background, as well as what is the value of the course in terms of what sort of career prospect can the student expect once the student returns back to the home country. And here we use a very colloquial term, which is return of investment, right? If the student is investing, let's say, $50,000 on a 2-year master's course, what is the chance of recouping this money after going back home, because the student is going to get employed at a so and so company at a so and so level position where you would be earning X bracket of salary a month, right? So this is very important to do a lot of research on and elucidate in your SOP, right? So some of the red flags are when you're going for a course that is completely unrelated to what you've done so far. It is okay to start new and have a change of interest, but you'll have to explain that well in the SOP if that is the case, right? And if the course does not improve employment prospects in your home country, for example, you're doing a course in, let's say, automotive, in and back but back in your home country there is no scope for that because your country does not manufacture any automotive vehicles and there is no particular industry that is serving that is serving you to get your employment prospects up back in your home country, then that is a red flag again, right? So your course must have enough value back in your home country. And expected remuneration on course completion, here this statement should be pretty detailed and it should have validated research on what sort of return on investment can the student expect in terms of salary after completing. So I always encourage students to refer to government sources in terms of, let's say, if the student is going to do a master of IT specializing in software application, then there must be detailed research on what is the opportunities for IT industry back in their home country, how much it is contributing to the country's gross GDP, what is the year-on-year growth in that industry, what sort of roles can this person apply for immediately at entry level, at a mid to senior level, what sort of roles can they apply for, what is the remuneration that one can expect per year, and if that is a remuneration, then how long does it take for them to recoup this $50,000 that they've spent on the course, and and uh, and how much it is worth the investment in terms of how much it is increasing the earning potential of the student, because there is value to the course in the applicant's home country, right? So this must be very detailed, and some students don't do enough research and write generic statements, and it's not going to help, where it increases the red flag and it leads to rejections as well, right? Immigration history, this is, as the name indicates, if you had visa rejections, visa refusals previously in Australia, then that will be, or in another country, that will be very closely looked at, right? So if you have had visa refusals because you didn't comply with your visa conditions, let's say you had entered a country and you were supposed to depart that country within 28 days but you ended up overstaying, that will be looked at, right? Another thing, that's when you are continuing to be a student onshore, studying a lot of short, inexpensive courses to continue to maintain a de facto residence in Australia, that is also a red flag, right? So that those, if you're do, if that is the case, then those things have to be validated and explained in the SOP. And other relevant matters are generally matters that can be considered, that the department is has intelligence about your application, where they have some reasons to suspect that um, about your genuineness, right? It also takes into account whether perceivably do you have the intention to comply with your visa conditions as well, right? So these factors are very important. So your statement of purpose as well as the information that you put in your visa application must transcend all of these red flags and must validate your intentions to study in Australia as a genuine student, right? So some tidbits here: employment work history must be relevant to the course that you're going to opt in Australia. Academic history must be consistent when it comes to study choices. Link, if you have had a change of mind and you're pursuing a new career, that should be explained properly why. And length of stay in Australia, being in a range of temporary visas, as I said, affects family and social ties. You must have strong intention to stay back in your home country. The way you elucidate that, let's say you have, there are students that write really convincing statement of purpose because that's what's going on in their life. We had a student who write that, okay, I have my puppy who I have who has grown up with me for the last 5 to 10 years, and I wouldn't want to abandon her. So once I finish my studies, I would like to go back because I have a really cute puppy. It is a personalized statement where the student is making an argument about why she has strong family social ties, right? So I'm talking about similar situations. If you are coming from an extended family, if you're coming from a family with where there are many majority of them are settled back in your home country, you must highlight that, right? Relationship status, contrived relationships. So if there are relationships that, let's say there is a student and there is a student dependent who is added as a family member included in that application as a spouse. Let's say the spouse already had other visa rejections for other country. He has had persistent migration patterns to other countries, but has exhausted their migration options in other countries and now would like to marry another person and gain access to Australia. These sort of situations were also looked closely at, right? Travel history, as I said, not spent enough time in your home country. Long term visas, Or if you have simultaneous work visa applications, if you apply 482 visas simultaneously, you're applying for student visa, that is called into question as well. Past visa refusals as well, right? So a brief about the GT document, as I said, these points, it should be a personal journey statement, must reflect on your family background, your academic background, your intention to study, must compare and contrast between options, must have enough validated research on the demand for the course in your home country, expected salary, as well as anything that is a negative point, that's a red flag, must be explained. And the important thing is to all, if you have a negative point but you have an evidential document to support your claim, then you must attach that, because that increases the reliability of your case by 100% when you attach evidentiary documents, right? English language requirements. So departments, see, one thing is that if you look at the minimum test score here, obviously department accepts IELTS, PTE, Cambridge English, OET, a range of English tests, yes. But if you look at the minimum test score here, it is in the 5.5 IELTS range, as well as when it comes to Pearson, let's say 42. That is because that is department's requirement. But the education provider that where you are looking at to study, they may have different requirements. They may have higher requirements. For example, bachelor's courses, they have a 6 to 6.5 IELTS requirement, ranging depending upon the course, as well as master's. Many courses like in niche areas like social work, nursing, teaching, they need 7 each or sometimes more than that. So this is department's requirement, must not be confused with what is the your academic requirement for the course, right? Now, evidence. Next, coming to the very important criteria, which is evidence of financial capacity, because many students are also stuck here as well. So the department expects that all genuine temporary entrants have enough sufficient funds to cover their cost. What cost that we are talking about? Tuition fee, living expense, and travel expense. But department does not want to see evidence of that for the entire duration of your stay. They want to see financial evidence for the first 12 months of your intended stay in Australia, right? So you must show evidence of tuition fee, living expense, travel expense. And if you have a dependent who is a school age dependent, which means they're above 5 years of age, then you'll also have to show school fee for those for the kids that are dependents on your application. But mainly component A, component B, component C is very important. So what is component A? That is the tuition fee that you would be paying in the first 12 months. It's normally your per semester fee into two, or whatever your COE says as your 1 year tuition fee, right? And component B, your living expenses. So living expenses are fixed by department every year based on the consumer pricing index. So this is the predetermined cost for 2021, and it has stayed the same for 2022 as well. If you're a primary applicant, you're the student who's going to study, then you must be showing $21,041 as your living expense. If you're a dependent who's accompanying your spouse while the primary applicant is studying, 7,362. If you're a child, dependent child, 3,152. And if there is another child for every kid, that is included as a family unit, 3,150, 3,152. Right now, travel cost again. If you are applying from onshore, you'll have to show, because you're already onshore, you only need a return travel ticket, that's $1,000. But if you're applying from offshore, then you'll have to show $2,000. But keep in mind, if you're from East Africa, South Africa, um, uh, or West Africa, your travel cost is 2,500 or $3,000, depending upon which region you're from, right? So onshore applicants from Africa must include at least $1,500 as return travel ticket, right? Now we've understood that what is the department expecting: 1 year course fee, 1 year living expense, and travel expense, right? Now, how can you show that fund? How can you demonstrate that you have those funds? There are two ways to do that. You can go under the annual income stream, or you can go under the fund stream. So we are going to look at both in detail. So when it comes to the annual income stream, this is very simple, and I wish more students know about it to take advantage of it, which is basically if you are the applicant, or if you are um, the applicant's spouse or applicant's parents, you can show your income tax returns as long as you have evidence of annual income at least AUD 62,222 if it's a single application. But if you have an applicant where there are application if you have the application where there are primary applicant dependents as well, then it should be AUD $72,000 rough gross figure. If you can demonstrate through official tax assessment documents, right, that you have enough this much annual income, which, so it could be a combination as well. You can show your annual income as an applicant, you can show your spouse's annual income, 30,000 from here, 32,000 from the spouse, or it can be a combination of the spouse and the parents as well. Applicants parents can show annual income too. So but this should be recent assessment documents that are issued 12 months before the application lodgement, right? So then in this case, you can only show the tax document. You don't have to show anything else, any other document to apply, and you are meeting the financial requirement for the Department of Immigration, right? But sometimes now that amount of $70,000 around earning potential is not everyone may have that high earning potential, right? So then they can go for fund stream, right? Again, as I said, the funds show money of 12 months course fee, living expense, and travel expense, along with any accompanying members, living expense and travel expense for them as well. So now these funds has to be shown by acceptable financial institutions. So any banks in your home country that are regulated by your the Reserve Bank, Central Reserve Bank authority of your country, then you can show them those are considered acceptable financial institution. If there is a financial, for example, a company that is just a financial services company and not a bank, right, then they cannot be included, right? They must be authorized by the government of that local country to lend money and to recover money from people as well, right? So it has to be a proper bank. And I have listed some banks here, depending upon listed a few countries and banks that are authorized. But generally, what you have to understand that they have to fall under the regulatory authority of the Reserve Bank of that country. Now we know what is the amount. We know where the money should be kept. Now, who can all show the money? Right now, this is a very important question because many ask, can my friend sponsor? Can my father's friend sponsor? Can my uncle sponsor me for studying in Australia? Right. So there is no particular hard and fast rule when it comes to this, but one has to notice that department looks at genuinely whether do you have access to funds depending on who's the financial sponsor, right? So they prefer immediate family members, of course, which is parents, siblings, and grandparents, what we call blood relatives, right? In some situations, where a friend or a third party, such as a friend, a cousin, an uncle, or aunt, they are sponsoring, they are acceptable, but you must also need still uh, sponsorship from your immediate family members. So you try to keep it at a ratio of 60% to 40%, 60% coming from your direct family members. Why? Because again, this when it's a third party, it really calls into question the genuine access to funds, right? And also there is also a GT aspect to it because are you showing enough financial ties back in your home country when you have third party sponsors? Right. So when although these are acceptable, when you have too much of third party sponsors, then there is a closer scrutiny on the case, and the case officer may ask for more information or reject also, depending upon what is the percentage that the third party is sponsoring. So now we've discussed about who can sponsor. Next is what sort of documents that are needed. Right now, any sponsor should give an affidavit of support in a notarized document where they are declaring that they are intending to sponsor this particular student or and their dependent for their studies in Australia at so and so institution. There should be an affidavit like that. There should also be their identity documents where it shows the relationship between the applicant and the financial sponsor. And then also very important, many people only show the funds, right? You must have evidence of ongoing income. Why is an ongoing income also asked for? How can department be sure that, let's say, the $50,000 that are allocated in the bank account will only be used for the student's study purposes and not just used as a show money thing, and then they would take it off once the student visa is granted for their own income, for their own purposes, right? So evidence of ongoing income technically proves that the family has enough money for their own upkeep. For, let's say, there is also a brother studying there is also grandparents in the family, but they have enough money for household expenses, for people in the family to get educated, for everyday run of the mills things, while this money that is $50,000, let's say, it's put in a savings account or it's an education loan, it won't be touched. It's only for the primary applicants study purposes, right? So many times what happens is that they may show a lot of money, but they won't have any income proof to show, right? And that also affects the genuine access to funds requirements, right? So acceptable type of funds, yes, you can show money deposit, which is savings and term deposits, loans, education loan, personal loan. Many think that only education loan is acceptable. Even personal loan, mortgage loan, credit cards are also acceptable as show money. Now, I'm just dissecting if it's depending upon what sort of show money, what sort of money, what form of money you're showing, how the statements must be presented. So, if it's a money deposit, again, as we said, it must be held in a acceptable financial institution, preferably if it is maintained for at least 3 to 6 months, because any lump sum deposits are questioned in terms of, okay, what is the source of funds, because there is also this clear thing that you can do. You can borrow the money and put it in the account, right? But so in to avoid such a situation, any lump sum deposits are questioned. If you have a good savings history, then it is considered more genuine funds, right? So recent deposits, if you have a recent deposit, that's okay, but you have to be able to justify where the money came from. Let's say my father sold some shares that he had invested in stock market. He and then he transferred that money into the savings account. Very well, then show proof that the stocks were sold, right? So there must be a clear trail of funds. Education loan must be, now when it comes to loans, it looks loans are often granted based on a security, on a collateral, right? It could be a house, it could be even a land or a property. So any sort of collateral, then they look at who owns the collateral, right? The because it is based on their ownership, the loan is being granted, so they become co-borrowers or primary borrowers when it comes to the education loan, right? So whenever there is a loan situation where there is a collateral, then it is also closely looked at who owns those properties, and they should be your first party relatives as well. You can't take your second cousin's uncle's property and get a loan on that, and where you are the borrower and you show that as financial documents. That doesn't work that way, right? So genuine access to funds, when you have an education loan, dispersing that loan to pay a part of your tuition fee, dispersing that loan to show living expenses is a must, because then it shows genuine access to funds, right? And as I said, more scrutiny is given when the ownership of the collateral is a third party, when the loan has already been used previously for another student, and you're submitting the same loan document because it is still valid. So these sort of things are looked at more closely, right? Now, again, as I was talking about the evidence of ongoing income, because that is other than the show money, the ongoing income is also a very important factor, right? So salary, if you, how do you show that, right? What is the amount that is needed? Minimum at least $5,000 to $10,000 AUD, depending upon whether it's a only one applicant applying or an applicant with a family is applying, right? But these income proofs can be shown in variety of ways. Salaried income, if your financial sponsor like your father or mother, their income tax documents for the last 2 years. Agricultural income can be shown, business income can be shown. If you're a if you have grandparents who are receiving a pension amount, those can be shown. Rental income can be shown provided there is a rental deed, and salary income as well, where in cases you can show salary slips and prove that the money is coming into the account in the form of salary wages every month, if your financial sponsor is working in a country where there is no tax records or income tax to be paid, like UAE for example, right? So other points of discussion, business account, yes, you can show money from the business account as well. But if there are any partners in the business, they should also give a clearance certificate, like a no objection certificate, that they don't mind that the money from the business is taken out and put in a savings account where the student is going to it's going to be useful for a student study purposes. Corporate sponsorship is also okay. Money held in non-financial, if you have money held in non-approved financial institution like post office account, like a provident fund account, you can show that, but you'll have to disperse that money, and put it in an approved financial institution, right? And sometimes, and as I said, in cases where the department is suspicious, they can ask for financial capabilities, financial ability from streamlined visa applicants as well. Finally, OSHC, that is also a very important criteria. When it comes to OSHC, there are many health funds. We have Mr. Ashish from NIB here. He will be talking about it in detail. But OSHC is a very important aspect of student visa because without an health cover, your student visa is not granted. And at the same time, it is that blanket of security for international students because they are in an unknown land, for emergency situations or for routine medical treatments that are needed. OSHC comes in handy for students because you don't end up with huge hospital bills because of this OSHC, right? So, OSHC policy generally covers your medical cost, which is basically when you visit a doctor or a specialist. They're called GPs here, hospital cost, ambulance service cost, and limited pharmaceutical cost, depending upon the policy. Um, and Mr. Ashish will talk in detail about OSHC. So, I'm going to talk to I'm going to now introduce some visa conditions that will be attached to student visa, right? So, of course, everyone understands that you once your student visa is granted, it is very important to abide by your student visa conditions as well, right? So, work rights. Many students know that Australia provides work rights for international students, but that is at the moment unlimited, but it is usually capped at 40 hours per fortnight. Work rights of dependents, again, dependents also have work rights, but depending upon the level of study the primary applicant is studying, if an applicant is studying master's or PhD, then the dependent gets unlimited work rights. Course enrollment, attendance, course progress, must be engaged with your course, must study genuinely, must submit your assessments on time, must pay your tuition fee on time. These are general things. Maintaining health insurance, 8501 condition. It is a condition that you must have a satisfactory health cover at all times without any gaps. And you must continue to satisfy criteria based on which your visa was granted. Your condition, if your visa was granted because you showed finances, you must continue to maintain your financial capabilities to sustain your student visa, right? And again, this one I want to notify 8533 condition, which is basically keeping the department informed about or keeping your education provider informed about your address and contact details as well, right? So that ends my presentation on student visa. I will take questions later, but here Mr. Ashish Bharadwaj, he will go ahead and present about NIB and their offerings when it comes to student visa. You can go ahead, Ashish.
Thanks, Deepa. There's a lot lot of information that you have shared. I'm
Thank you.
sure it's going to take students will have a lot of questions. I'll try and simplify health insurance as much as possible, and with the time constraint, we'll try to fit it in as much as possible. So I'll share my screen, explain what health insurance is all about in
Mm-hmm.
Australia, what is the coverage, and how you can maximize your benefits.
Sure.
I'll share my screen now. So as Deepa said, overseas student health cover, this is a mandatory requirement for student visa subclass 500. Um, I'll explain the term MBS because we will be using that term a lot. MBS is Medicare Benefit Schedule. That's a schedule that is set out by the Australian government for residents in Australia. And the government has prescribed that any student coming into Australia, the provider must provide at least that level of cover. So for all the services under the MBS, there's a charge that is prescribed by the government, and the doctors must charge that charge. And the benefit provided by the providers is based on that charge that is prescribed by the government.
Ashish, are you able to share your screen?
I thought you cannot see my
No.
screen.
There is an upward arrow, share. We can't still see your screen. Yeah, can't see your screen. Um, do you see this share icon?
Can you see now?
Yes, yes, we can see now. Yes.
Yeah. So under your coverage, the OSHC coverage, you're basically covered for everything that comes under the MBS schedule, except for a few things, which are things like infertility treatments, extra services, which are like your dental, physio, optical, treatment that is provided outside Australia, compensation or damages. Say, for example, you're working and because of your work you get injured, that won't be covered I mean, you will be treated, but you will not get any damages or compensation for that. And non-essential hospital items like things that are, if you're admitted in a hospital and if the hospital is providing you like newspapers or something like that, those kind of things are not claimable. So these are the only things that are not covered, but all the other medical procedures that are listed under the MBS, those uh, uh, are covered under the OSHC. Now, going for the benefit, if you are admitted in a hospital and the hospital is contracted, even if it's a private hospital, it is contracted with NIB, you will get 100% of the contracted rate. So you will not be out of pocket for any expense. If you choose to be treated in a non-contracted private hospital, NIB will cover up to 100% of the default benefit. Default benefit will be the MBS charge. So not the charge that the hospital will charge, but what is prescribed by the local government. And if you go to the public hospital, again, 100% of the gazetted rate, which means that whatever is prescribed by the government in that particular state, that will be covered. All your inpatient medical expenses like surgeon fees, anesthesia fees will be covered 100% of the MBS. So MBS, I'm just reminding again, is Medicare benefit schedule prescribed by the government, and the coverage will be up to that. I just want to explain that even though we keep talking about MBS in Australia, private doctors can charge whatever they feel like. But the providers will only cover up to the charge that is prescribed by the government. To mitigate that, I will come to another slide later in my presentation and explain to you how you can use the services with the providers who don't charge more than the MBS fee. So under your cover, you will also be covered for GP visits, like to the doctor, and you will again be covered for 100% of the MBS fee. If your GP recommends you to see a specialist or get any pathology or radiology or any tests done outside the hospital, you will be covered up to 85% of the MBS fee. So let me just explain this. So if you're admitted in the hospital will charge you the gazetted rate or the MBS rate, and NIB will cover that. But if you're getting a test done outside, you will be covered only up to 85% of the MBS fee. Ambulance is fully covered, and you can use that any number of times. You also have coverage of prescription medicines. So there are medicines listed in Australia on a PBS system. PBS is prescription benefit scheme under which the medicines are subsidized in Australia. So for every prescription, you can get up to $50, and your coverage would be maximum of $300 in a calendar year for single, and $600 for a couple or a family. All health covers in Australia come with a waiting period for a pre-existing 12 months. So if you're coming to Australia first time and you're already pregnant, you will have to wait 12 months before you can use the services. The same applies to a 2-month waiting period applies to psychiatric treatment as well. However, there is no waiting period for the ambulance. So that's your coverage and your benefits. So I've explained that. I just want to share a video. So once you decide to go with NIB, what is the next step? So NIB has simplified. So if you have to see a doctor, you don't have to actually visit a doctor or go to an emergency department. you can do a telehealth or a virtual consult and decide and take the advice from the doctor what to do next. I'm going to share this 1 minute video and then we'll touch base on that. So that's how easy it is. After you have signed up, you download the app, and once you have the app, you basically, that's your first point of contact with NIB. And if you really need to see where you need to go and what you need to do next, it's all through the app. It's just so easy to deal with. Um, I think that's about it. And you there,
Ashish,
yeah,
there are some questions that I would read it out to you.
yeah.
Um, Urvish Patel, guys, please sound off your questions about NIB or anything about health insurance in general, and Mr. Ashish will be happy to answer them. So, Urvish Patel wants to know, do we need to pay first the whole amount and then get compensated from the insurer? Um,
No, so once you have downloaded the app,
mhm,
you will get a digital card on your phone. If you are attending a doctor's service in person, all you need to do is scan your QR code at the service. And if the provider is charging you the MBS fee, then that will be paid directly by NIB. If they are charging more than that, then again we will be paying only the 100% of the MBS fee, so that you will be out of pocket for the difference. But to avoid that, on the app you can look for a provider under Find a Provider,
mhm.
and that will show who are the providers in your area, and who are the providers where you will have to pay a gap, and who are the providers where you don't have to pay a gap.
Yes. That is very important that students understand who are the approved providers that are with their an insurance company so that they avoid any gap fee or out of pocket cost.
That's right.
Uh, right. Uh, Also, when you are planning to have any planned treatments or surgeries, minor surgeries, then it is also important to call your insurance provider to understand what sort of hospitals are they affiliated with so that you can again avoid any large sums of out-of-pocket cost as well.
Yeah, so
Uh,
all that information is available on the app. All you
right.
have to do is say, I'm looking for a GP, or I'm looking for a specialist, or I'm looking for a hospital, and it will actually, you can see my screen. I'm just going to click on
Sure.
find a general practitioner. It says find, I'm going to put GP. And the list is populated. It exactly shows. So here it says no gap for international members. That means if you go and see this the provider, you won't be out of pocket for anything. Whereas the next one says low gap for international members. That means you will be out of pocket for that. So you can make a choice who you want to go and see.
Right. Okay. Guys, I will be answering the questions related to student visa first, and then I'll do a short 5-minute presentation about student dependent visas because a lot of it is covered already. It's the same subclass. And then I'll be answering questions about the student dependent visas. Right. So, Jitendra, I'm reading out your question now. My brother is in India. He's a qualified civil engineer with 5+ years of experience. So, can you please guide me? What is the best way to bring him here? That's a great question, Jitendra. What I will suggest is that obviously we'll have to look into his case in detail, but on the top of my mind, a good course to do is a master's of construction project management or a master's in construction management, because if you're looking for long-term settlement for your brother, he can get PR because he can nominate himself as a quantity surveyor as long as he study an accredited course. That is all it takes for skill assessment. There is two pathways. He can technically also do a master's of engineering or a master of engineering management or a master of civil engineering and try and nominate himself as a civil engineer, or do a master's of construction project management. An example for that, you can do that in Bond University, that is already accredited by AIQS. You can get a skill assessment as a quantity surveyor, and you can go on to get your PR as well. And one thing is that it is also good to do this course in Brisbane or QLD, because there is huge demand for construction professionals, construction management professionals, right? Now, that is the course aspect of it. Now, when it comes to the other aspect of getting the visa, right? So, see, this is he is at the right juncture. He has not accumulated too much of experience considered to be okay. He's a long-term professional, 5 plus of experience, mid to senior level. So he can. I would suggest to not waste any more time and apply for a student visa for a Masters of Construction Management program, and come here on a student visa and then explore your further pathways. Right. Um, I will answer the dependent question after my session. Yadit Kumar wants to know, can I change my university of, or course, keep the same level of study after applying student dependent visa? Currently, I'm in Australia. Yes, Yadit. So you can do that. See, one thing is that for student dependent visa, you have to show finance. Department is asking for finance irrespective of the primary applicant studying in a level one institution or coming under streamlined, right? So you, as long as you maintain the same level and you are satisfying the primary criteria for your visa, which means maintaining good course progress after changing, studying your having good academic progress, then you can change. It is not that okay, I'm applying for a dependent visa, I'm intending to bring my spouse in the meantime. If I change my course, will that affect my subsequent entrant visa application? No, but you must study the same level. You know that because you can't breach, you cannot downgrade, right? And also, the second thing is that you must maintain enrollment and must have an active COE, must be constantly studying. Urvish, which subclass to apply to bring my spouse when I'm already studying in Australia? Urvish, as some a member answered, that is also called subclass 500. It is the same one. It is just called, used to be called student dependent visa, but it is currently called subsequent entrant visa. Basically, it is under the same subclass 500, but it is called a subsequent entrant visa. Um, Jitendra is asking which provider is the best. Um I think it is about insurance. um, because the question is which insure, I guess it is which insurance provider is the best. So obviously, NIB is offering a range of benefits when it comes to their core OSHC offerings. At the same time, they are very advanced when it comes to services that they are rendering in terms of the app where you can get all the information in one go. So we certainly promote NIB for OSHC health cover because it is affordable, but at the same time, this quality and service is very good. Wouldn't you agree, Ashish?
Yes, and also we are also having health and well-being programs. So, the students come here so they don't, um, not that they don't know, but they can engage via the app and get to know like different programs which will help them, manage obesity or, arthritis and things like that, which they can be part of these programs to avoid these kind of things.
Right, right.
So it's not just about providing services like paying the claims, but we
Mm-hmm.
are looking after our students by providing them suitable plans where uh, they can look after their health.
Sure. Thank you for the question, Jitendra. Parul, if you can type your question, we'll be able to answer it. Um, okay. Oh yes, I think you've already typed yours. So I'm going to answer your question. I'm pursuing Masters of Cybersecurity. Also, I've applied for my husband's dependent visa, but I want to change the university. So can I change it now, or should I wait for my husband's visa grant? So the thing is, as I said, right, it is perfectly okay to change as long as you are maintaining the education level, right? So um, the application is already under process, as I assume, because you've already applied for your husband's visa, right? So make sure that you are changing. If you're changing a provider, it is at the same level. If you are studying a master's, you must change to another provider that is also providing a master's course, right? And what I will also do is apply for a letter that I am enrolled. Let's say if you're changing to XYZ university, get a letter that you're enrolled as a full-time student and you have taken all of these 4 subjects for this semester and attach it to the visa file as well, so that it is very clear that okay, you are maintaining the same education level and you're continuing and you're progressing as a good student, but it won't affect um, the fact that you should wait for the husband's visa for you to change university. It doesn't matter that way. It doesn't You can freely go and change if you want to, if you have a change of mind and you want to change your provider. um, can come with my family on student visa, like relocate together, or do I have to go alone and then apply for them to join? Audrey, thank you for your question. That is a very common question, right? So, when you are coming as a single applicant, then your GT is under question. Yes. When you're applying as a family, your GT as well as your family members' GT is also in question, right? So the answer to your question is I need to look at your entire facets of this of the case to suggest if there is any red flags. But let's say if you are already a very matured age applicant, right? You are already around 30 plus to 35 plus to 40 plus, around that age, and you are thinking about okay, I will also want my husband as well as my 2 kids to join me as well, then your career progression must make sense. You must have had, let's say, a strong career back in your home country, strong work experience documents back in your home country, and you must also go for a very good qualified program at a master's level or a bachelor's level depending upon your education background. And I will also suggest you to go for more a group of 8 university where there is more risk tolerance when you are coming as a family. So I will be very happy to assist you on a very personalized case to case basis on what is a good move. Let's say if you're only going to study like a diploma of nursing for now or a diploma of community services for now, and you are a mature age applicant and you have uh, uh, a big family, and at the same time coming together with whole of your family members means you have minimal ties to your home country because you're entirely relocating, then I would suggest you to then not do that course. Come alone first and then add them as subsequent entrant once you come onshore, which is a much better way to do things. So Audrey, I'm just going to reply with our email address here, and if you could quickly pop in your details, I'll get in touch with you for a personalized consultation. Okay, Audrey has given further clarifications. I'm looking at masters in education or teaching. I'm 28. That is okay. Yes, that is okay. You don't have much to worry about if you want to add your spouse or your kids, but please make sure that you go for a good level 1 university as well, so that it just cushions your visa and makes it more, gives it more of a positive outcome. Um, what is the processing time of student visa after lodging visa for masters when we get confirmation about work rights? Okay, Jitin, that's a very good question. Processing time for student visa at the moment, see, it is oscillating a lot because department is doesn't have enough resources at the moment to process all the visas. So there are processing time lags at the moment. For a July intake, the July 2022 intake, the processing time is currently between 3 months to 4 to 5 months. There are applications that are taking 6 months as well, but that is lesser, probably 10% of the applications. But it is finalized anywhere between 3 months to 5 months. But if you're applying closer to the intake date, then you can escalate to the department that my course is starting, and sometimes those cases are prioritized because there is a course that is imminently starting. Right now, when we get confirmation about work rights, so your work rights are implied in your visa conditions, right? So that there is nothing like they apply the work rights when you get your student visa that comes with an at the moment unlimited work hours. That's because of COVID concession, but generally it's going to be 40 hours a fortnight, right? But you must also remember you can only start working after you have enrolled and started the course. Let's say you come to Australia in December, your course is starting in February. You cannot work until your course is starting, which is in February. So the months in leading up to that, you cannot legally work. So one must understand that while those conditions are inbuilt on your visa, you must not start working until your course has started. Uh, how many days earlier can I reach Australia and get a job before course start date? As I just answered you, Sahil, you cannot start until Not only you, even your dependents can't start working until you've started the course. So that's why I said it's not too good to come too early. First of all, when you apply too early, they scrutinize the application. And second of all, you don't have work rights also. Sometimes you can't control processing in terms of when the department will process, but you must understand that you can't work until your your course has started, your course has commenced. Uh, Sahil Shah, I am a BCom graduate with 1 year experience in government of Gujarat. Want to make a career in corporate world, that is MNCs. Also want to get CPA membership. Will MPA be the best option? Will this course create a doubt in the mind of immigration agency officer about myself being a genuine temporary entrant? As I said, right? Um, of MPA is equivalent to MCOM in India. It could be a commonly available course, but as I said, in your statement, see a BCom graduate having worked as 1 year in accountancy, going to Masters of Professional Accounting, perfect logical academic progression. No one can question that. But you will have to write in your statement why you've not pursued MCOM back in your home country, which is again, as you mentioned, getting a CPA membership is possible when you complete a Master of Professional Accounting in Australia, right? Which is not an option. So, Master of Professional Accounting is the best course for you, yes. But as I said, you must, just like how you explained it to me, think deeper and explain reasons in terms of perks of okay, the Master of Professional Accounting, this is CPA accredited. I get a provisional membership with such a highly rated accounting body. On top of that, if you're getting 3 months internship as part of your course, you must state that. If you are able to work in companies in an Australian work environment, which is going to enhance the value of the course to your future, you must state that. So make it detailed and not generic. Um, I think I have arrived at all of the. I've answered most of the questions here. Um, my brother has completed 12 with medical 86%. After that, he attempted NEET exam 20. Can I apply for this? Yes, but we need proof that he attempted because let's say, as I said, a student's progression is very important. You cannot have long gaps of unproductive periods, right? So if he attempted in 2020, 2021, 2022, we need proofs of his hall ticket, his NEET examination preparation course, if he had enrolled in that. We need evidences. As I said, if you have a red flag, you must explain it in your statement and also provide evidences so that you are clarifying that with proper evidentiary documents. So if you have all of that, yes, you can go for that. Yes, Sahil, you got it right. Yeah, please reach out to us if you need any more help. Now the session is going on longer, so when it comes to the dependent, because it's all the same thing, um, it is all everything about the subclass 500 subsequent 100 is also the same thing. I'm only going to talk about the relationship aspect one slide so that you guys get an idea about what sort of relationship documents one has to provide for a subsequent entrant visa or a student dependent visa. Let me quickly broadcast that. Right, so as I said, it is the same subclass 500. It is just branded as subsequent entrant visa. It used to be called student dependent visas more colloquially, right? So we know who I've spoken about who can apply for this visa, right? Because they must be spouse or they must be a dependent child. They cannot be a brother, sister. They cannot come as a dependent, right? Now, when it comes to requirements, they also have the same requirements. They also have a GT requirement as well, right? So that's when I talked about if you have a spouse or a de facto partner who's had a poor immigration history, that is going to be considered as a GT negative, right? And they must also show show that they have enough money. They must also have health insurance. So when you hear me out here, guys, when you're adding your spouse, right, you must upgrade your single cover to a couple cover. That is the right policy to hold. That is when you're also meeting your student visa condition as a family unit, right? So you can approach NIB to upgrade your single covers at the moment when you're adding your dependent to couple covers or when you're adding family members to a family cover, right? Um, Now, I also disclose that you must have declared your partner, right? at the initial time of your student visa application. There's complications arises because there are undeclared family members, and then when you find out the document, they've been married all along but they never declared it, right? So but if you have such a situation, you can come to us for a one-on-one consultation. We can sort that situation out as well. But it is very important to be transparent with the department, right? Now when it comes to the documents, um, when it comes to the married couple or the de facto partner, right? They are going to look at how are you solidifying your relationship in paper, right? So you must demonstrate that you have mutual commitment with your partner and you are in this together. Your relationship is genuine and continuing without any interruption. You are living together, you live together at some point of time. Minimum period of living together, because for a de facto partner, we it has to be at least 12 months. There are way around it if you have not lived together for 12 months, but mainly it's recommended that the couple has lived together for 12 months and they're not related by family, of course. Now, the information that the immigration is looking for is when you first met, how your relationship developed, what is the social acceptance of your relationship, how much time have you spent together, how much time have you spent apart, how much have you put in terms of working on the relationship to maintain continuity, and your plans together for the future after the primary applicant finishes the course. What are your plans as a family together relating to your home country, right? So I'll just talk about, this is a very important chart, guys. If you are applying for a subsequent entrant visa, four parts: financial equation, nature of the household, social matters, commitment in terms of the relationship. Financial matters, the immigration wants to know how you are dealing with financial, how's the financial equation like, right? Whether do you spend for each other, do you have joint lease documents, do you have joint ownership, do you have joint assets, do you have household bills in both the names, right? When it comes to household, again, where emails and are addressed or bills are addressed in both of your names, documents that you have been living together, right? Lease documents and so on and so forth. Social matter, does the society know about you? Do you have friends in common? Do you move around in the same social circle? Have you traveled together? Have you paid for each other? Are you part of clubs or events together? And commitment, this is basically in terms of you must give certain voice call proofs, chat proofs that you've been committed to each other and you have a continuing relationship and you know of each other's background, right? So as much as documents that you provide along with your relationship statement, the applicant has to write a relationship statement, the spouse has to write a relationship statement, and both should coincide and match and must be aligned, and you must show evidence requirements in finance, household, social, and commitment on all four aspects, right? Then there is a good chance that you will get the student dependent visa. It is not it is the weightage is on this. It is not so much about what has the primary applicant been doing, right? Of course, if it's a primary applicant has breached the visa condition, that is a problem. But mainly, it is assessed based on these four conditions, right? So, I think we have neared the end of our session. I'll stop my screen share. Anyways, okay, this has been such a ride these past 5 days to bring in such an event at such a scale, where there were so many behind the scenes people as well who've been involved in making this event such a grand success. So I would like to thank all the audiences who've joined us consistently over the last 5 days. We saw a lot of unique visitors for each session. We tried to answer as much questions as possible as well, but we would like you to stay connected with Aussizz Group. Follow us on our social media channels, and if you have questions, please email events@aussizzgroup.com so that we can give you a personalized consultation as well. I'm very grateful for the opportunity to present this session for you guys. We will be organizing more such conclaves in the future as well. It is going to be a mainstay event in our annual calendar, and we hope to collaborate with providers like NIB on these sort of initiatives as well. Thank you, Ashish, for graciously attending these sessions today. And for viewers, as I said, there are giveaway offers. Continue to give us a shout out on the social media. I'm going to drop the link in the comment section. Feel free to um, tag Aussie's group and write your feedback or share your excitement about the conclave and what you what you earned out of it, and the best comments will receive a lot of giveaways from us, right? Thank you so much. That's a wrap of the conclave, guys. We wish you a very best in all of your endeavors. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.